Welcome to the Igniting Impact podcast brought to you by Public Knowledge. I'm Stacey Moss, your host and president of our management consulting firm. Our firm's vision is to be a catalyst for change, leaving each person, project, client, colleague, and community better than when we started. The Igniting Impact podcast is an opportunity to share what our clients and partners do daily to make a difference in the world. And this season's theme is all about change. We know change is everywhere, in our work, in our systems, in our communities, and within ourselves. This year, we are looking at ways to approach, manage, and adapt to change on our projects, teams, and in our organizations. Today, I welcome three guests to the podcast. We have Phyllis Nance, Kathy Sokolik, and Matt Sautter. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to start today by just getting to know you each a bit more. So if you could tell us a bit about your professional background and what you do for work, let's go ahead and start with Matt.
Thanks, Stacey. I thought you might call on me first. If I'm just thinking about my professional background, I started working in child support right away. Didn't anticipate ending up in child support, but I've loved every second of it. But I did start in the state of Washington. So I grew up in the Portland, Oregon area. Then I started working for Washington State DCS and did that for a number of years, working cases, training, and then managing special projects and grants for the state. So after the state of Washington, I actually moved my family to Utah, to where I'm at now. And I worked in child welfare here in Utah for about a year before coming to Public Knowledge. And so now I am our child support industry director here at Public Knowledge, where I can really help lead and guide our team in the child support work we do in helping to meet the needs of the child support community.
Thanks, Matt. Kathy, do you want to tell us a bit about your background and what you do for work today?
So I began working in the social services programs in 1983 here in the state of Washington. And my career has been divided almost equally between working in the public and the private sectors. And it has been focused primarily in the child support program. I have done a wide variety of things, including working on behalf of the federal government at different times. As for today, I'm thinking that at the time this recording is released, I'll actually be retired,
Yes.
which is a large change that I'm looking at.
And you've run our child support line of business for quite a few years in that role.
Yeah.
All right, Phyllis, you want to tell us a bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, it seems like we all have a lot of similarities. I started my career 41 years ago. So I've been in public service for a very long time, but I started in the conservator program, which was helping the elderly and the mentally ill. And I moved over to the family support. It was in California, it was with the DA's office. And I moved over to family support. And then I went back to the conservator's office because I thought, I really want to continue to do the work in that realm of helping people that couldn't help themselves. And at some point, a little carrot was put in front of me that says, hey, come back to family support. We're opening a training program there. And I thought, oh my goodness, I think I would love to go back and train. When I went back, I never saw myself staying forever. And it seems like I've been here for a very long time, but I've had the privilege of working in all aspects of the child support program, from that caseworker perspective through management and leadership. In 2000, when we could transition from the DAs to our own department, I was the assistant director and then became the director. And that was all in Kern County. And then at some point, something happened in my mind and thought I needed a change. And I took an opportunity in Alameda County where I am the director. I was only supposed to be here for 5 years, and it looks like I've been here for 10 years now. So like Kathy, I am looking forward in the near future to be on that other side and being retired.
Real quick, just because we haven't spent a ton of time on child support on the podcast, I wondered if you guys would help just kind of describe the program a little. I think Oftentimes people think it's about collections and only collections, and there's a lot more to it. So I don't know, Matt or Kathy or Phyllis, if one of you is willing to just give a little bit of background about what a child support program does and kind of the family-centered approach. I think that'd be a great way to start us off.
So I can start, and then I'll let someone else stop in to talk a little bit more about the evolution of the program, because I think I've been in the child support program since 1987, started in the Seattle field office. And at that time, we were a collection agency. People who were on public assistance, we were looking to reimburse the public assistance paid out on behalf of their family. And we were looking to what we called the absent parent at the time to collect from, and again, sort of to repay the state and the federal government for the AFDC that was paid out at the time. And we hired people who had a collections background. We hired people who had a skip trace background, didn't necessarily hire people who had a good customer service skills. We were seen as a moneymaker and for both the state and the federal programs. And that has changed a little bit. And I don't know, Matt or Phyllis, if you want to talk a little bit about that transformation.
I can, because, in California, we were part of the district attorney's office.
Yeah.
The core mission of the child support program is to establish parentage, child support orders, and enforce those orders and locate, I won't say absent parents because that dates me, but to locate the other parent if that other parent is missing. And so from that perspective, being with the DA's office, it was really child support was seen not as a value added, but more as a penalty conversation, right? Yeah. And so we spent a lot of time penalizing people and beating them down in our approach to collect child support. And so when California changed from the DA's office, we were family support, we changed to child support services. And we changed our language. I can remember we have so many acronyms in child support: absent parents, CW, complaining witness, CP, MP. And so the list goes on and on. But when we changed to child support services, we started calling our families at that time customers, which was a really big shift. And that sounds really crazy, right? That just calling them customers became such a monumental shift for the program. And we've even evolved from that point. So 20 years into the California program being child support services, we talk about the participants as parents, which changes the dynamic of how you go about doing the core mission. So we still collect child support, but we see the participants in our program as parents, and we see their value, and we work towards building their capacity to support their children.
Matt, anything that you want to add around kind of that future kind of family-centered approach?
Yeah, I came into the child support program somewhere in the beginning of the transition. So a lot of the folks I worked with were kind of on both sides, probably more on the earlier stage where it was very much enforcement, not a lot of thought for how are my actions impacting the parties on the cases. And me as a person, I'm very much one to, am I helping or am I hurting? So having conversations as a caseworker with both parents and realizing I don't know that I am helping here like I would like to be helping as a human. And so I've seen the journey, been a part of the journey, and have been proud to be a part of that shift to services. Some of the work I've done has been directly related to that in the early beginning, and some of the grant work to really begin to look at how are our actions impacting the lives of these families, and could we do it better? Could we actually provide a service, to Phyllis's point, to them to make people's lives a little bit better rather than hurting them? And so I've enjoyed seeing the journey. And as we're talking about change today, it's still happening. And it's still a process that everyone's going through a little bit differently. But I think we're seeing positive outcomes from it.
Okay, so on a personal note, I wanted to ask you each kind of what values shape how you approach change. And this is in your change in your life in general, so personal or professional. What are those values that shape how you approach it? And Phyllis, do you want to start us out?
Sure. In thinking about this, I really think that I'm going to go to the Bible, right? In Ecclesiastics, it says there is a season and a time for every purpose under the sun. And in that conversation, it really speaks to me that there's a time for different things, which means there are changes all of the time. And so that's the value I carry with me. When I was in training, the motto in training was subject to change, so that every one of the trainees understood, okay, we're here now, but this may change. And it allowed people the freedom to accept change. So I just embrace the conversation that there's a season for everything. And so change is just part of that. So, and that's how I lead. That's how I've trained. That's how I live my life.
I love that. And it brings such a visual to my mind of all the seasons. It's a great way to approach change. Thanks, Phyllis. Kathy, what about you?
So would say probably honesty and transparency are probably top of mind for me. In my professional life and as a leader, I really try to remember that we have adults working for us, and depending on the impact of a change on them, they may need to make decisions based on what's best for them and their families. So trying to be honest and transparent so people can make the decisions they need to make. I remember, Phyllis, I'm thinking it was when we were going to one of the interim systems at some point that we were implementing, and one of the people in our office decided to retire because she had been through previous implementations and said she just couldn't handle the stress anymore. And she thought it was probably better to retire than to go through another larger system change. So I think trying to remember that people are kind of autonomous beings and need to make decisions based on what's happening, and us trying to be transparent about that so they can make good decisions is really important.
Thanks, Kathy. Matt, what about you?
I don't know where this comes from for me, but I've always kind of turned towards change and really embraced it in whatever the change was. So similar to Kathy, the words that came to mind for me first were openness and adaptability, in the sense that through change, I tend to be very transparent as I typically am, and open then to what's happening, what I'm thinking, what we're going through, which I think in most cases brings a little sense of calm to the process and understanding of what we're going through, and whether it's going through it individually or together with others, being really honest with what's occurring and what's happening. And I think that helps me to be adaptable through those changes and embrace them more than fear them.
I've definitely seen that in you over the last few years. Matt, I like those words, open and adaptable, because I would definitely use that to describe you.
No, well, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for sharing. I wanted to just kind of move us to our topic today, which is all about child support training and how these efforts kind of reflect program shifts or system changes or kind of anything that's happening within that program. More specifically, about customer service and collaborative negotiation training, and then even deeper into Alameda County's training goals. So maybe what we could do is just start, Phyllis, with you to tell us a little bit more about Alameda County and training goals and kind of what challenges you use training to address.
Well, I think talking about how the program has changed and really building that inside your organization, knowing that we are in a changing program and it's changing even now, and it's changing pretty rapidly. Using training to set the foundation as a way for people to feel comfortable. One of our values in our organization is growth and development, and we have a number of behaviors that outline what that looks like when you embrace that. And part of that is individuals really trying to embrace learning and being more knowledgeable on all of the topics. So for us, that's our goal, is to ensure that the staff that work in our office have the opportunity to understand the program, understand the changes, that we can build their skills so that they will be able to address those changes and effectively feel like, oh, I have some level of control. Because I think when you have the knowledge and you have the understanding, you have that control. And as Kathy talked about the autonomy of a person, most people feel like if I don't really understand or I don't know it, then they feel like, oh, wow, I don't know that I can do that. But when people have the knowledge and they have the understanding, I think that is what drives their ability to do their best work. And so that's how we're leveraging training. And just from the conversation of, in the sense of, really thinking about who we're hiring and what job that we have. And these jobs are really different. They're not siloed. They're not singular jobs. They require people to have a number of competencies in order to serve our families the best. So really trying to also embrace that. And then again, leveraging that training when they get here.
And I'm assuming that customer service is one of those competencies you're looking for. What are some other competencies that you're looking for?
We're looking for critical thinking. We're looking for that service delivery. We're looking for collaboration as a competency, in which, lots of times people think of collaboration as an action, but we're actually looking for it as a competency. The uniqueness about the child support program is I could have a family in our program for almost 18 years or more, right? And so recognizing that part of the work that needs to happen is to build relationships with the customers, to understand the parents' cultural backgrounds, and to be able to facilitate the conversations. So building those skill sets are also part of that conversation.
Kathy, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about the history or the evolution of public knowledge's customer service and collaboration trainings, because I'm assuming they are connected to what Phyllis just said around competencies, but tell us a little bit more.
So I'll start with collaborative negotiation. I think I was the first county to use this training when I was the deputy director in Marin. And it was because of my previous career in the private sector that I met a woman named Cynthia Bryant who developed that course. And we really needed to get away from the court model in our county, and then also in Santa Cruz when I moved on to there, and needed to look at a model where we were interacting with the customers a lot more, and also evolving to that place where we were no longer establishing and enforcing orders based on, something completely disconnected from what the family could do. So all of those things together ended up being in this collaborative negotiation course and approach. And so I had the opportunity to work alongside Cynthia Bryant to help kind of shape that course. And then I got to become a trainer of that course. And I think as a model, it's been really successful. And I think the states and counties and local programs that have adopted it understand that it's really about communication. It's really about collaboration. It's really about working with the family. Like Matt said, it's really about kind of removing child support as the ultimate arbiter in these families and making sure that we're paying attention to what's going to work with the family. So we've been using that model and training that model for quite a while. And I think a lot of jurisdictions have adapted it to even use with their own laws and local policies and even their automated systems. And then customer service has always been sort of, for some reason, something that we did in terms of training, from training all of the staff in Washington State. And eventually, with the advent of technology, we decided that maybe we could have a little bigger, broader reach by going to an e-learning or a hybrid delivery for customer service. And I think those of us who worked on the course materials, having been in child support for so long and having experienced those evolution, I think the course kind of resonates because it is a child support course, and and the way customer service and child support work. I think that's why it's been a successful course, really.
I just want to piggyback on that. We have done a lot of customer service training in our agency, and there are lots of different kind of models, and they're usually generic to child support. So when we got the public knowledge's customer service, we were like, oh my gosh, this actually speaks to our staff. it allows for our staff to really think about their interactions, their real interactions, right?
Yeah.
And it allows for them to walk themselves through their decision points. And it's just fabulous, right? So it's one of those kind of courses that you make a decision point. It might not be the right decision point, and it takes you to the next decision point. And it's just been really a blessing for our organization, because it gives a different perspective about child support customer service. So I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, because I can imagine that customer service is something that everyone, right, needs, right, in so many different roles. But if you're in a role in a child support office, that role is very different. So what you do with that or how you address customer service is likely, I would imagine, very, very different.
We like to talk about our customers in child support as sometimes being unwilling customers.
Yeah.
They didn't come to us to buy something. So navigating that is a little different in customer service.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point, right, Kathy? Most customer service models are those people who are coming to you sometimes willingly because they are just so excited about what you have to provide for them. And in child support, it's just a little bit different. People come at different stages, some being really excited and a whole lot being, not so much, right? And so that course allows for us to take that in consideration. It's realistic. It's really well done.
Yeah, so I love that because it really kind of highlights some of the challenges that training is kind of designed to address. Matt, if you're looking at that collaborative negotiation training, what are some of the challenges that is designed to address that you've talked to some of the child support directors about over the last few years?
Yeah, it's really designed to bring those parties, the parents, our customers, to the table where they may be coming into it unwilling, but bringing them in and to the point where hopefully they become willing, right? And they're participating in the process alongside child support with their child support professional to come to an agreement together. So they're not butting heads, whether with the child support agency or their partner, and they're really collaborating and working towards a common goal together. I think that's the largest barrier that it's aimed to overcome, but also for the individual child support professionals, giving them the skills to prep for meetings and have those conversations. And if something difficult in the conversation comes up, they can address it and feel confident addressing those topics.
And it sounds like from what you said, Kathy, and also Phyllis, that you're also trying to kind of lessen the impact on the courts or lessen the number of cases that are kind of fought out in court. Is that?
Yeah, one of the things that we talk about in collaborative negotiation is that model gives more control to the parents over the outcomes than going to court often does. Court TV has done a disservice to the parents because they think they're going to be able to go to court and explain their story and, get justice and all of that. And if you've never been to a child support court hearing day, at most people may be getting 5 minutes, maybe 10 if they're lucky. And so really trying to take care of the easier cases, the parents who have a willingness to work together, to collaborate with the department, trying to get those off of the court calendar, leaves the court calendar open to help with the more difficult cases, or frankly, the people who really collaborative negotiation is not appropriate for. That's one of the other things we do talk about in the course is that, there are people where coercion may be at play, where domestic violence is an issue. We want those folks to be in court, and we want to make sure they have time to be in court. So taking some of the easier stuff off the calendar is also kind of one of the goals of the training.
Okay, well, let's turn to a couple of questions around our core values. So at Public Knowledge, we believe that inclusion, teamwork, and impact are core and essential for driving meaningful change. And so I want to talk just a bit about how this may show up in your work, Phyllis, in Alameda County, or in the work that we do at Public Knowledge. Within these trainings or outside, really just kind of in general. So I think first is just How do you think the training or the work that you do kind of amplifies different perspectives? Make sure that those parents or children that are in your cases are being heard, either within the kind of training of the workers or within your work, kind of taking that family focused approach. And Phyllis, if you want to start, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that collaborative negotiations give the training itself, gives the child support professionals the opportunity to be in a space that their role is to listen, right? Since I've been in the program a long time, there was a time we didn't listen to anybody, right? We had policies that, and that's way back in the day, but we had policies that every 90 days, the custodial parent or the parent with the child could contact us and don't contact us before those 90 days. And when the parent who was ordered to pay support or the non-custodial parent would come along, we'd say, yeah, we don't really want to hear. You need to listen to us, not we need to listen to you. And so I think this training, both the customer service training and the collaborative negotiation training, really turns all of that around. It puts us in the place to say we're working for the best interests of the child. That's the state of California's goal in the child support program. It puts us in a place for us to listen and hear that perspective. And then when you add the other work that we're doing, building partnerships with other agencies, it allows for us to hear the perspective and then maybe make referrals to other agencies that when we can't help. So I think that's really important. Using the training, it just becomes part of what you do. So it also allows for us to practice that model internally. To listen to the perspectives of other people. And I'm always the person, and Kathy probably can attest to this in the room, that play the devil's advocate, because I think all perspectives are really important, that you don't get to your best product until you hear the perspective of someone else. A long time ago, I was in a training where we were all sitting at a table and the trainer, it was a big table, and the trainer went around to different places and they had a red flag and they'd asked who could see the red flag. And depending on where you were sitting at the table, whether you could see the red flag. And so the purpose of that conversation was depending on where you're sitting is what you can see and what their perspective might be. And so really understanding that you need to get everybody involved and hear the perspective because someone is seeing something that you're not, I think is part of that collaborative negotiations conversation too, but part of what we really think is important in our agency.
Kathy, have you seen that shift kind of over your career too in the child support program, that kind of amplifying the voice of the family and the parents and getting different perspectives?
Yeah. It's I remember when I started in the Seattle field office, we had a custodial parent customer service team, and they were the only ones allowed to talk to the custodial parent. and generally the question was, am I going to get a check? I mean, literally it was this isolated little group, and none of the rest of us ever even thought about what that parent might need, might want, how we might help them. I think back to those days and think, oh my gosh, I am so glad we're not there anymore. And Phyllis, I was so happy you talked about listening, because when I thought about this, that was what I went to immediately also, was one of the things we train in the collaborative negotiation, and I think in customer service too, is what we call listening for core concerns. And I don't deal directly with end customers, anymore. But when I think about change, even within the organization, one of the things that I've learned is that when somebody is really upset about a change, there's probably something going on beyond what they're saying and what they're expressing, and trying to really think about core concerns. And again, we talk about this in our collaborative negotiation course also, is like, someone may say something, but that's maybe not what they're actually concerned about. And but thinking about system changes, for example, somebody may go from being like the expert and end up being now back to a learner stage. And, maybe that core concern is around a loss of some kind, a loss of being a subject matter expert, a loss of status. So I think bringing that into, the world of child support customers has helped, because I think in the beginning we were money. I mean, we talked nothing about, only about money, and we never talked about things like parents being concerned about their children's well-being. And we only gave them the language or the right to talk about money. And that has been, I think, transformative in terms of the agency.
I was just going to say, I think Kathy and Phyllis answered that question really, really well. So my mind has kind of gone to thinking a little bit differently about how training and different perspectives helps change. And one thing we've seen while we do these trainings, we saw it in Alameda as well, as we're bringing the workers together, perhaps for the first time in months or years. Early on, post-COVID, we were getting groups together who hadn't seen each other face to face for a long time. And we're still coming to that because a lot of folks are still completely remote or a hybrid combination. And a lot of new people have been hired in child support. So when we get them together in a classroom, a little bit of magic happens as people are discussing their work and what they do. And some of it's really simple, as far as you're doing that over on that side of the building, we're doing it this way on this side, right? And having that collaboration just amongst themselves, that rapport building has been really, really fun to see. And for the new folks, I think they gain a lot from that, right? They're not hearing conversations, interactions with customers like they might have heard over the cubicle wall, learning that from those examples, right? Those interactions, they're not getting that as much today because they're at home taking phone calls. There are just not as many folks in the office anymore, not as many customers coming in to learn from those experiences. So it's been really cool to see that aspect of it internally for the programs.
Yeah, I love that, because that's really about kind of those differing perspectives and also into that collaboration, not just with the families, but also with their teams inside the county office, which is so important. Are there other ways that you guys are seeing kind of an increase in belonging or increase in collaboration on the teams in these child support offices or with key players, whether that's courts or families?
I think we're working on that. So I think Matt brings up something that I think is really important. I think that with the pandemic and everybody going home, something was lost, right? I'm just talking internally with the team conversation. And so bringing people back, they are beginning, and they still have a hybrid working model, but if they're beginning to connect, we have what we call Collaboration Thursday, which means that everyone comes into the office on Thursday. And the goal is to find different activities, offer different trainings on the teams, have them meet together so that they can do some level of that collaboration together and share and really talk about it. When we went through our collaborative negotiations and we finally finished that next Thursday, part of the supervisor's work was to talk about, hey, what did you learn? What did you get from that? How do you think you want to apply it? And we're still working on that part. So I think we see more collaboration, but it really has to be intentional, and it has to be a leadership model that says, here's how we bring the space for people to come together.
Kathy and Matt, you guys seeing anything else happening across the country in child support programs that might focus on belonging and collaboration?
I think there's certainly a push towards that. And I think, as Phyllis stated, it has to be intentional, and programs are all at different stages of it. We talk about it internally too at PK Ride, is how do we integrate our industries together, and how do we provide a well-rounded house of services to the families our programs are serving, because we know we're serving the same people. And so I think it's a difficult thing, knowing just how big government can be and how difficult it can be to break those barriers in some instances. But I think we're close to really seeing some success, and some programs really take some really big steps in getting there.
Okay, well, turning to the last one, to impact, I'm curious if you're looking at measures or performance measures or how child support workers are doing their work from before the customer service and collaborative negotiation training to after. What are you watching for or measuring for? Like, what type of impact are we looking to have?
So we're looking to see if we can see an increase in stipulated agreements, right? Really looking for that conversation and knowing that's hard. That's hard work sometimes. But we're also looking to see if our just engagement with the parents, what that leads to. So we're looking at cases, building our reports to look at cases where we've had that engagement, and hopefully the customer service training and the collaborative negotiations training is embedded in their interactions. And we're trying to see that even if you didn't get a stipulated agreement, does that equal consistent payments for parent to the families? And so we're trying to look from that perspective. And then we are developing our survey instrument to be a little bit different, to ask some questions about their interactions with our families, and to look at some of the key values and goals in the customer service modules, as well as collaborative negotiations, to see if we're hitting the mark. Because really, we're doing all of this because we want to make an impact. We want consistent payments. We want families to have agreements with each other. And we really want to see if this work is leading us towards that.
Kathy, anything else that you think programs should be looking at or measuring to see if it's having an impact?
Yeah. So, to piggyback on what Phyllis said, and again, reflecting back on why we brought collaborative negotiation to the counties I was working in, it really was about, like I said, like Phyllis said, getting orders that people agreed to, getting those stipulated orders, and understanding that when people have an agreed order, they're more likely to comply with it, which also on the back end relieved a lot of our workers, their need to focus, so intently on punitive enforcement actions. If you have, some increased number of folks who participated in creating their order, understand their order, understand where it came from, and understand the importance of complying with the order. It also meant that the next time something needed to happen on their case, they were much more willing to come in and work with us once they saw us and once they saw the process as being fair, and that they had some control over the outcomes.
Yeah, I love that. More willingness to come to the table, less chasing, less of those punitive measures, that you're getting that money in the door in an easier way.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Matt, anything to add?
Yes, I think there are outcomes that can be measured, right? It's going to be difficult, of course, because so many other changes occur, and it really takes an all-encompassing approach to really know that you've made enough effort to really measure something on the backside. But I think Alameda is there, right? They've really invested in the training and just the leadership approach from Phyllis and how they're wanting to go about work. I'm optimistic that they will be able to see outcomes there. But I also want to say it's a team effort to that point, right? From leadership, and then even from the, if you will, the life of a case, right? Because a lot of hands often touch that case and have conversations with the families, and every one of them impacts that outcome. They all have to be sending that same message, all have to be working to build that trust, so that when it comes time to establish or modify an order, that parties are willing and trusting enough to come to the table and have those discussions. And I think that presents itself also in other ways within child support, as far as how easy is it to contact the parties, or are they proactively contacting you when changes happen? I think there's a lot of little things that can also be difficult to measure, but I think as the child support professionals spend time and really invest into that, right? It's a lot of work up front, but I think in the long run, I think there's a lot of benefits that will be seen.
If I could just add to that conversation, because I do think that the other part of that conversation that we are working on here in Alameda, in building the reputation of the child support program, that means that we have to deliver what we say we're going to deliver. But we're also building relationships with other partners. And those other partners, we're utilizing them as our trusted ambassadors. So when the other agencies are willing to say, Yes, child support will work with you. They are skilled at negotiations and they have excellent customer service. And then they refer people and we deliver, as they can't refer and then we don't deliver, right? I think it really creates an ecosystem that really benefits the child support program. And so we are really building our relationships with other agencies. We are sharing the trainings that we have put our professionals through so that they understand, hey, we are willing to work with people. And people are beginning to say, hey, go to the child support program. Hey, they are really good at that. They will work with you. That's their marketing for us. So.
Well, yeah, to understand your role and how you approach working with families, they're going to be more willing to refer. That's great. All right. Well, before we conclude, I'd love to get your insight. You are all leaders in different ways, and would just like your insight and advice about how leaders can better lead change. As we know, we're in a lot of times of uncertainty right now, and there's a lot of complexities that we're dealing with. So the first question is just, what is your advice for leaders navigating the complexities of change in today's world?
I'd say first and foremost, show up as a human. I think admitting I don't have all the good answers right now, and I don't have the control, and I'm learning right alongside of everyone else, given the complexities we're all kind of muddling through right now. I used to start every staff meeting with the same question, which is, what rumors are you hearing? Because I would never hear any of the rumors. And people started volunteering. And it's rumors, you need to address them just sort of head on if you're undergoing a large change or kind of what we're doing now. Either, to dispel them or clarify them or confirm them. And I think Matt alluded to it earlier that it's the more transparent you can be around that kind of stuff, it really helps calm people down when things are swirling all around them. And then I also think being willing to roll up your sleeves and work alongside your team is really, really important when things are uncertain and things are a little unsettled. Just sort of that we're all in this together kind of approach, I think, helps people a lot.
I think I was going to say something similar. Being human is really important. Being vulnerable is really important. So that vulnerability of saying, hey, I don't know, or yeah, I'm feeling a little anxious too, I think is really important. And then I think that, really listening to people, understanding that we all are going through something becomes probably the most important. Change affects people differently because it might bring up old trauma, ghosts, and really recognizing that and having that level of empathy, I think, becomes really important, and walking the walk.
And my advice to add to what Kathy and Phyllis said would be maintaining that focus on the objective, right? I think change can, just as Phyllis said, right? It can be distracting. It can create a little bit of chaos. But if as a leader, you can maintain focus. What is our goal? What's our objective? Why are we here? Then the rest of that noise can occur, but you can maintain on your course. And if that course has to shift a little bit, which it may, because you're going through the change, then communicate that, but stick to what that new objective is. And I think that gives you at least an endpoint, right? To get through the change, have a vision ahead of you. I think this is really helpful.
All right. And the last question is, how can leaders empower their teams to innovate and adapt in times of uncertainty?
To me, it's similar to the previous question about being an example. Kathy mentioned being transparent. Phyllis and Kathy mentioned. And I think to add to that, though, I think to really empower the team, showing them that you trust them, right? That we know what our goals are, and together we're going to overcome this. But we need each of us, right? We all have our own talents we bring to the table, and I need everybody. And I trust you to come up with some ideas, and let's talk about it, and let's get through it together.
Phyllis, what about you? How do you empower your team to innovate and adapt?
So I'm going to go back to probably the very first question when you were talking about training. I think that you share the information and the knowledge, because you can't throw a ball to someone and empower them if they're not ready to catch. And so I think it's really, really important that you prepare your staff, you give them the knowledge, and then you open the space. Even if you're cringing about what the decision is, you don't let anybody know that you're cringing. You just support that conversation going forward, and it gives people their own locus of control, and it also empowers them to take the next step. That's how I think you open it up. And if there are directions that people can go, I've always said, it doesn't matter. We can always course correct at any time. So you have to lay the foundation that people feel comfortable in order to make a mistake.
Yeah, comfortable to take that risk.
Yeah, if they don't and they feel like, oh, you're going to do something, then they're never going to, even if you use the words empower, they're never going to feel that or act upon that.
Kathy, what about you?
I was going to say ditto to what Phyllis said. I think you need to give people space and time just to talk things through. I think as in a leadership position, I think sometimes we have to restrain ourselves and not be the first one to talk, not be the first one to come through with a solution, to really, like Phyllis said, really give people the space to explore. And yeah, there may be some cringe-worthy moments, but I do remember some meetings in my past where I left the meeting thinking, why did they bother asking me for my opinion if they'd already made the decision? So I think really committing to that place where you set aside, and I use the word like kind of, I don't want to say humble yourself, but recognize that there are a lot of smart people in that room, and giving them the space to explore and come up with something is really a good use of time, good use of effort, talent, and you may find the next group of leaders coming out of those conversations.
Yeah, allowing them to think that way is the best way to learn, right? Allowing them to help solve those problems is the best way to learn how to be a leader. All right. Well, thank you, all three of you, for sharing your insights and your stories today. It's been really fun getting to learn about the incredible work you're doing in the child support programs that's creating real change for families. Can't thank you enough for your time today. It's been a privilege to be here with you, to connect, to learn, to grow, to breathe, and to share. Until next time.